Welcome to Charts This Week. My name's David Linton. I run Updater, and markets had a good week last week. A bit of a surprise. We felt after a few good weeks midsummer that we might see a setback. And quite interestingly, the S&P on Friday did close at a higher high. So although this is a good news technically, it means the market will probably keep going higher. There is always a risk that you get this just temporary move that just takes you a little bit above. So you can't always be that precise with resistance and support. And in fact, that's one of the great reasons why the clouds are so good, because they give you areas of resistance and support. And here we see the daily cloud. The weekly cloud is the big blue cloud. The daily cloud here on the S&P, we see this red cloud, key level at about 1130. For the S&P, that's a pretty strong area of resistance. That's the other end of the cloud. So we're in the resistance zone at the moment, and we've marked the higher highs and the higher the lower highs and the lower lows here. And we see that, in fact, it still might be that if we fall away this week, we would look back in time and consider that whether it was this point or this point, we would consider it was the area that was a high, lower than that high, and then perhaps a new low. So it's still a bit early to call, but quite interestingly, we did break higher, but we're still in this resistance zone on the daily chart. So absolutely critical there. And then if we look at the point and figure chart, we see we've got the downside target of 940. That's still hanging over us. So although we've had this move, we've got to really break to a new high on the S&P to take away this downside target that's hanging over us. And if we go to the 5x3 chart, this is quite interesting. We have an upside target of 1235. That's new last week, activated with Friday's close. So we do have a target that is taking us to a new high on the S&P, but it's still really that we're in this range. So until we break this level of about 1130, which is that same resistance level, then saying that the S&P will run another 100 points, it's a bit too hard to say. So we need to see the S&P get above 1130. We are in this range. It is summer. We'd expect the S&P to probably at best be stuck in this sideways range, or maybe reverse and come back and test these lows again. So absolutely key that. Here we see the 60-minute chart. This just does show the congestion. Remember, the clouds are not so great in sideways markets because you do get lots of signals and they are quite congested. We see the few hours that we were above. To really say this breach is certain on the shorter term, remembering resistance is 1130, to say this breach is in place, I'd like to see a few more hours in today's session where we stay above this level of about 1100. This 1100 level is pretty critical. 1102 was Friday's close. So if we can stay above that and hold it on Monday, then that would be quite good. The RSI giving quite good signals on the market because we are in this sideways zone. Remember, the oscillators work well when the market's going sideways. The 1 minute point and figure targets, very short term targets, quite nice upside targets. 1127, which we know is resistance but not activated. 1154 off this big move is activated, so we do have some upside. But interestingly, there's a little downside target of 1088 coming in on Friday afternoon, but again not activated. So one to watch. Watch how that 1 minute chart develops over the coming days. The FTSE this morning, very little change on the FTSE. It's up about a point, and here we see that we do have this upside target of 5460. This is the 1 minute chart. 5475, but hasn't been activated yet. A new move above 5350 would activate that. So we've got quite a lot of work to do on FTSE today or tomorrow to actually get these upside targets activated. And of course, the UK market always waiting to see what happens in the US. The DAX, lots of little congestion patterns here on the DAX. It's really narrowing in. Pretty good upside support, better than most other Western markets. Upside targets 6750, 6900. So those are the targets we're looking for. Note the DAX hasn't really rolled over and come off the way the other markets have. We do have downside targets, but at the moment the DAX is looking pretty favourable. Here we see the euro chart, the daily chart on the cloud, not through yet on the euro. Price is through, but the lagging line's not. About 130 is the level we need to close above and stay above for that to happen this week. And so 130 is becoming a very critical level for the euro. Sterling against the dollar is through on the cloud, both on the price and the lagging line. So sterling has made that transition to bullish. We did touch 155 this morning, so it is looking like that sterling is making new sort of 3-4 month highs. Quite key. Sterling is looking quite strong, stronger than the euro. Here we see the euro dollar 1 minute chart. We do have an upside target of 130.140, which has been activated, not a long way from where we are, but we do have these downside targets, 125.10 and 125.10. The second one not activated, but the first one is 125.10. Two targets of different selling thrusts on the 1 minute chart pointing to the same place. That's a cluster. That tells us that there's quite a good chance that we're coming back to about the 125 mark on the euro. Oil, very congested still. We're sitting at this 78 level. We're sitting at this mid to high 70s level for quite some time. Not through on the cloud on the daily, so it's still bearish, having been bullish most of the last year or so. The last few months on oil haven't been great, and we still have some downward pressure. Essentially, it's a sideways move. Hence the oscillator's working quite well, the 14-day RSI giving quite good signals for oil. But really quite hard to trade at the moment because it's quite, it's ranging. Here we see the 60-minute chart, very slight uptrend. It is above the cloud on the 60-minute chart, so we do have oil in a bit of an uptrend. RSI again has been giving reasonably good signals because of this fairly congested zone. If we look at the 1 minute chart for oil, we do have some upside targets, 79.90, 80.90, but a downside of 73.70. Not activated that one though. Here, very interesting today, we see the 79 target given last week was met. New downside target of 76.50. If we can get, but if we close below this, if we get a 1 minute close below, if we see the price below 78.50, then we quite likely will go to 76.50. So about $2 sell off is what we'd expect on oil this week. That's it for this week. Until next week, happy charting. See you then.